was just thinking about that the other day. That Miserlou, the kind of surf guitar Dick Dale song. That anyway, I forgot about that. That song it sounds harder to play than it is, and so I used to play it to be like, look at me. But I kind of forgot. Now I bet I can't play it anymore. All right. Excellent. I believe we are live. And the YouTube is working. I have it on good authority because I just started hearing it in my headphones, which is a good sign that it is live. And it looks like the recording is in progress. So I think that is working too. So I guess we're ready. Thank you, everybody who is tuning in live. This is Ask Dr. Fish. You know what? I don't even know what number because it has been a year and a half or so, long enough to get a paper desk rejected, but only barely. Let me see what episode number we are on. AskDrFish.com.
New year, new us.
New year. This could be episode 1, but it's not going to be. Ooh, is it a good sign that the website won't load? All right.
This is Ask Dr. Fish 2.0, episode 1.
Episode
A
8.
new beginning.
Episode 8. No, episode 11. Episode 11. Wonderful.
Does that include the early prequel?
I don't know. I just know it's episode 11.
We'll figure out the canon timeline.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Here,
All right. It looks like we're not live on Facebook yet. Are we live? But I'm going to hit this go live on Facebook. It looks like the stream was deleted on Facebook. Oh, well, maybe we're just live on YouTube. All right. Excellent. We will troubleshoot that behind the scenes, but for now, we will go straight into the show. Again, thank you, everybody. So the plan here is to do Ask Dr. Fish on a monthly basis, starting now, Monday, February 2nd. It'll be the first Monday of the month at exactly 10:30 Eastern Time. And then we will release the podcast when we get it edited shortly thereafter, by certain definitions of shortly. And also put it up on the big feed, teaching about the Great Lakes feed. So tune in everywhere. But if you have questions, we should be able to see you in the chat. Pop in with questions. So if you have them, go ahead and ask them, I guess. That sounds good. Are we ready? Okay. And Megan's going to paste the link in IISG Slack in case anybody wants to tune in. Stuart says in that way that's a sentence that makes it sound like it's a question, but it's actually a sentence. All right, let's do it. That's right. It is Ask Dr. Fish. Welcome back. We are back, baby. We are so back. After a little break, happy to be joining you again. My name is Stuart Carlton with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and we are joined by not one, but 2 Doctors Fish today. It is such an honor. First, Dr. Fish, Katie O'Reilly. Dr. Catfish, aquatic invasive species guru, Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. KEO, how are you?
Hey, Stuart, I'm doing great. I'm so excited. We got the gang back together for Ask Dr. Fish, 2026. 2026.
The year of Ask Dr. Fish. It's little known. Well, it was little known. Soon it will be widely known that this is the year of Ask Dr. Fish. Second Dr. Fish, Titus Seilheimer. Titus, Wisconsin Sea Grant Fisheries Extension Specialist, maybe?
Yeah, I am a fishery specialist for short.
Yeah,
hello. Happy Groundhog Fish Day. Is there a Groundhog Fish? I don't know, but there should be.
Yep. Yeah. Do fish see their shadows? Do fish have shadows? Yeah, they have shadows.
They
anyway,
do.
all right. Yeah. So let me give you the quick rundown on the show because it has been a while. So the way that it works is this is a once a month live stream in which we're live on YouTube and Facebook, except rarely Facebook, often YouTube. This time it looks like we're on both actually now. And we ask our Doctors Fish, our fish questions, our science questions, and our life questions. If you have a question for Dr. Fish, just hit us up at askdrfish@gmail.com. Or if you're watching live, listening live, just go ahead and paste it in the chat. And I believe, without knowing for sure, I believe that it will pop up on our screen. Anyway, with that, let's go. We actually have a rundown here. First thing, we have a question of the day already. This is from our listener Carolyn in Michigan. Is a frozen fish in a river? So we have more lake ice right now than usual. Probably more river ice too. It's been unusually cold. as you know, unusually cold. And so with that, we might see fish that are like freezing in there. So sometimes the fish will freeze like in ice, right? Because the ice around the fish will freeze. Do fish get frozen in ice? Is that something that happens? And then if it does happen, Titus, are they alive or dead?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this, and certainly I think if you see a fish frozen in ice, it was probably a dead fish that then froze in the ice. So unlike things like wood frogs that can freeze solid and then thaw out later and hop around, fish in general, I'm not aware of them being able to freeze and then thaw out. So yeah, if you see a fish in the ice, you're probably not. It's not boding well for that fish.
So they're usually belly up in the ice.
Yes, and they'll kind of float up, to the bottom of the ice, and then the ice is freezing down from the top, and it's going to just surround it.
Yeah, gotcha. Good news is you can take those home, and they're probably still safe to eat. At least I would assume.
I would not do that, but
okay.
This is the Stuart Carlton special. Winter treat. It's just chip that fish out of the ice and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, what I do is I lick the fish, and then it starts out tasting just like ice. But then once you get there, it gets a little a certain pungency. It's kind of nice on the palate. Kitty O'Reilly, do you eat dead fish, ice fish? Have you seen icy fish before?
I have seen icy fish before. I can't say I've ever tried one, but maybe that's in the realm of the Goby dogs someday. But yeah, no, I mean I would agree with Titus in that it's probably likely they died prior to freezing. There are some fish not in the Great Lakes, but in I know there's one fish or species called the Alaska blackfish, which is a freshwater fish in Alaska that has some stories about it that it can survive being partially frozen, but that's even with that fish, which is highly adapted to those environments, getting frozen is not usually a good thing. They usually only will last, live a couple more days. Some other fish in the marine sphere, especially some fish down in, the poles, Antarctica, have actually kind of antifreeze proteins in their blood that can help them survive really low temperatures. But in the Great Lakes, most of the fish, try and survive in the cold by changing their behaviors. So, they're cold-blooded, they can slow down their metabolism really, really low so that they're basically just kind of bare bones existing. They try and find, deeper, warm, quote unquote, pockets of water that might be right above freezing, and just hunker down there for the winter, kind of like me in my apartment.
And so that kind of where that area is, though, that kind of changes with the time of year, right? We don't need to get into full stratification and that stuff now, and lakes turning over, but so fish have really done a lot of work over the millennia to find the right place to live, I suppose. Is that right, Titus?
Absolutely. I mean, and this time of year, like especially this year, you can see you'll have things called winter fish kills, and that's something we actually had locally. Just the local lake here had a fish kill, and it's this very productive lake, so lots of nutrients. Historically, it has this like legacy nutrient, like it's a fairly eutrophic lake, and so when the ice locks that in, as a fairly shallow lake, you only have so much oxygen that's kind of locked in with the ice. So with these productive lakes, there's still a lot of respiration happening, and then you can get very low oxygen, and that can lead to some of those fish sticks or ice cube fish, fish sickles. And I did a talk last week, and someone asked me about it. They got the name, like I hadn't heard about it, but then they told me some other name. They said Crystal Lake. It was actually Silver Lake. And I described, ice skating out there, seeing, these bluegills under the ice, sideways, which they were obviously not alive. And so I was able to give the correct answer that she was asking without knowing that that's what she was talking about. So
Crystal Lake, of course, known for things not being alive as well, since that was where the camp was in Friday the 13th. Excellent. This is Ask Dr. Fish, where we answer your fish questions, your science questions, and your life questions. We also talk about the news. So this is the time of year where we start to think about everybody's second or third favorite Great Lakes fish. Lakey's finalist, Lakey Award finalist for Great Lakes Animal of the Year, the lake sturgeon. And so this time of year, you'll start to see a lot of people thinking about the lake sturgeon because there's actually fishing seasons that go on. And we've talked about these before. I think there are two fishing seasons that I know of, one in Michigan and one in Wisconsin. And in Michigan, it's a real kind of rodeo style, got to get there quick, right, Titus? That is a small limit, is my understanding.
Yeah, racehorse style.
Racehorse. Okay.
Yeah, so I think their quota this year is 6 fish, and that is Black Lake in Michigan, and basically that is the allowable amount. And once those 6 fish are harvested, and that might be 17 minutes of the season, then the season closes. So why have a season for 6 fish is kind of my question. It's a lot of work, right? And it's just 6 fish.
No, it's a good question, especially if you're like putting all this effort into a grand total of, less than an episode of, your favorite sitcom.
I have many episodes that are 17 minutes, maybe more.
Exactly.
I know you're sitting out there on the ice, you're trying to watch, you just start your show, and you look in the hole, and then it's over. You got to pack everything up. You've only watched.
By the time you set up your ice shanty, yeah.
But this is a hook and line fishery, is that right?
Well, hook and line and also spear.
Okay.
And so like the Lake Winnebago, which we'll talk about too in Wisconsin, is spear based. But I think getting back to your point, Stuart, of why go through the effort for such a small quota of fish. It really, I think, is kind of a cultural thing. There is a culture, both the native peoples, the tribes, and more broadly, northern Michigan kind of culture of harvesting sturgeon. And I think, 6 fish doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot more than we probably would have had 20, 30 years ago. And so I think by having the opportunity to harvest, it keeps that culture alive and helps provide support for all of the various restoration efforts that are ongoing. I know they're holding like a festival type thing in conjunction with it that is just meant to get the community involved and aware. And I think that aspect of it is almost equally as important as the actual harvest for, food, which a lot of people will smoke or, harvest and eat the roe or eggs.
So it is a food fishery though, too.
It is
these are even though they can't seem to win a lakey for whatever reason, they are pretty majestic fish. And
hecking majestic, yeah.
Yeah. And there's actually our friend Megan Goss was telling us about a documentary that they're releasing on sturgeon restoration in the Saginaw Bay, and when they're really cute when they're young and they have these little bulb noses, and then as they get older, they just turn into something that's like human size, right? And they're very little or bigger, depends on your human.
Not bigger than me, but certainly longer than me, but right. Maybe not as heavy.
Tastier though.
I've been really building up my sturgeon bulk.
Strength.
Yeah.
But it's part of the winter hibernation plan.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know that plan. I know that plan. Excellent. And so Titus, have you eaten a sturgeon? You've had smoked sturgeon, I bet.
I have not had smoked sturgeon. I have had lake sturgeon caviar before, but I would like to try it. It's definitely part of the history, and I would agree it's a cultural thing. And our Lake Winnebago fishery is a contrast with like a much larger quota of over 1,000 fish, and I think this is like the Lake Winnebago fishery, which is probably the best managed lake sturgeon population in the world. It's really well managed, and that's kind of the the ambition if you're Black Lake in Michigan or other sturgeon populations. I think that is kind of what you can strive for is a larger population that supports these fisheries. So I think we're Lake Winnebago starting on the 14th of February, runs 2 weeks, and then it'll either it goes until they close, they hit any of the caps on the quotas, or it goes until the end.
But its quota is a lot bigger, right? I was looking, and it's actually it's kind of hard to find because I think they reuse certain material. They reuse most of their rules and route reach or whatever. You just got to find the quotas at the end. But it looked like in total, when you count for the different groups and everything, it's at like 1,200, 1,500, something like that. Is that just because it's a more productive fishery? I was going to say better managed, but it's not actually better managed. It's more just that's what's available there. Is that why it's so much? I mean, because that's a lot higher.
I mean, I would argue it is better managed because it has been managed for over a century now. Like it was, really kind of recognized, when early on when the populations were kind of, all around as sturgeon populations were declining. This was a fishery that people wanted protected, and so they really started managing it early on. And actually, if you click the tab there, spearing season summary, if you click those Winnebago harvest or Upper Lakes harvest, you can see this is how they kind of break those quotas down. Like Winnebago is the large part of the lake, and you can see 280 juvenile females. And if you hit that number or they get close to it, like that closes the whole season. Like you could. These are kind of within each type of fish. Yeah. Okay. So if you hit any of those, that is going to end the season the next day. And, adult females, males. So these are all kind of going, in parallel. And if you look at the Upper Lakes harvest is a lot smaller because that's a much smaller system. It's like Lake Poygan, Lake Winneconne.
So are sturgeons sexually dimorphic? Like, do the females and males look different on the outside, or do you not know what you've caught until you've cut into it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to know. I mean, females are going to be much larger. Like the largest fish are females, and but if you're kind of you're not sure, and all these fish. So every single fish that's harvested needs to go to this whole series of DNR. Check-in stations, and like every single fish has to be registered. So you harvest it. You can only be out there spearfishing until 2:00 because then, everyone kind of goes after that and checks their fish. And, all around there are these stations and the biologists are there and they'll open these fish up and, they will collect biological data, but they'll also see, male, female, juvenile, adult, and that's how they're doing it, like each day. And then at the end of the day, after a couple hours, they send out these reports. So it's really cool to kind of follow it through the year as the season is going on. Like every day you'll see, this is the biggest fish, and this is where they've been checking a lot of fish. So this is where the most fish are. And like success for the season, a lot of times will come down to how good is the ice, how clear is the water? And those can be the main factors. Because if you can't see the fish and the fish can't see, the lures you're dropping down or the decoys, people just aren't going to get fish. So
decoys, is that how you spearfish? Like you hold a little because they're not going in the. So I know nothing about anything. So sorry, I'm going to go spearfish. I've got my shanty, I've got my bottle of whiskey. All right. And I got my saw, and so I cut a little hole and they spearfish through the hole. They don't go in the water.
Yeah. You cut a very large hole. Actually. Okay. It's like, think like feet long. So you have this big hole and then you're just going to sit there. You got a spear and you're going to sit and look in the water. You drop your decoy down. Decoys can be like fish models made out of wood. There's these like local craftsmen who make these, and I've got a collection of like 4, and I'm always like, can I get more of them? They're displayed, so it's a collection, it's okay. And so it's it's pretty cool. But like there's within the People of the Sturgeon book, which came out by some of my colleagues like or I don't know, 15 years ago. It was before I started here. But one of the people used this Barbie car, like that was their decoy. And you can really use anything. It's like sturgeon are kind of curious, so really it's whatever you have kind of a known size, so you can judge the size of the fish when it comes up to check out your decoy, and then you can decide if you want to harvest it or not. But people go out there for like decades and don't harvest fish, and then you see some of these people who are, I got my third sturgeon, or I just went out for the first time and got my sturgeon. So it's a really neat, there is a lot of events going on that coincide with the sturgeon spearing season around this area, and kind of a neat story. I think really bringing people together around fish, which is that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and it's an interesting resource story as well, too, right? It's like there's a cultural aspect. There is, of course, a subsistence aspect, fisheries management, which I think it's really is I'll be honest, I find the taking of these fish to be a little challenging for me personally. But well-managed fisheries are well-managed fisheries, and so it really is a success at that point. Anyway, that is very cool. You are listening to Ask Dr. Fish, where we ask our two doctors fish your fish questions, your science questions, your life questions. We have a life question. Well, it's a little bit of each, actually. This one comes from me. I wrote this one down. And he's not listening, but I have a member of we went out to Meyer and bought a bunch of fish for our aquarium, including one of these things they call a sucker, but it's not like a catastomid sucker. It's one of these, right. And so it went down and sucked onto the corner of the aquarium, where it has not moved for 3 weeks at all. Is that fish dead? And if so, what do I tell my son? That's my question.
I mean, having not seen the fish,
right? But can you?
I'm not going to say 100%. I mean,
it's dead.
Some fish don't move very much. Like that is, it depends on the species. Some species are just fine. If they've got a place, they've got a source of food, they can, have a source of moving water that can go over their gills to keep them, breathing. They're not necessarily going to be, making salmon-like journeys. However, my thought is if it's probably one of those algae cleaning species that we have, it might still be alive. I feel like if it died, it probably would have disengaged itself from and floated upwards as Titus is illustrating. Again, can't say that for certain without having seen it, but the fact that it's still attached makes me think it's alive. Maybe, I don't know, the temperature of the water. Again, we talked about how when fish are in cold conditions, they just really slow down to the point of.
So maybe it's hunkered right by the heater if we're lucky.
Possibly,
new bit of information in the eye.
You can always, dip net them up and see.
Yeah, I should dig in with the
dip net.
I got to do it after the kids go to bed. Now I did look at the eyes, and they had little X's. I don't know if that's.
Not sure if that's a good sign or, yeah.
All right. You know what? This is February, though, which means two things. One, it is the season of love. And two, it is the season in which fish start to spawn. So we will now play America's fastest growing quiz sensation. Who is spawning now? It's a long intro on this song.
Tell me, Titus, who's spawning now? Tell me, Titus, who's spawning now?
All right, how do I make it stop? Titus, you are Dr. Fish, but we know that deep down in your heart, at least when it comes to fish, you're actually Dr. Love. Titus Seilheimer, it's early to be spawning because it's cold, but is somebody spawning this time of year?
Yeah, it is cold, and but there are fish that spawn under the ice, and it's it's another kind of great strategy because there's not a lot to compete with, and you kind of get a jump start on all the fish that are going to spawn later. So although I've talked about burbot in the past, burbot is one of my favorites, but This year I am going with the kai. Kai it's one of those deep water cisco species. So it's, fairly small, but they are found in Lake Superior. They actually go down really deep and they'll move up in the water column at night. They're a major kind of food source for things like lake trout, especially those Siskoet, the fat lake trout. And they are out there, spawning right now. And, just there's some work that I've seen from Matt Herbert at the Nature Conservancy. And they're actually trying to document that, going out there. And, it's challenges to like understand the biology here because, do you want to be out in Lake Superior, setting these deep gill nets this time of year? Like, obviously that's going to be a challenge. So, a pretty cool fish and supposedly, we're not really sure. Seems like their name comes from like the name of a brush that was kind of used by the folks in the Navy. And then they brought that back to the Naval Training Station near Chicago. And then historically we had kai in Lake Michigan as well. And, these, I guess, Navy vets ended up on the boats, and that seems to be the source of that name because it, common names can come from anywhere. So,
yes. Katie O'Reilly, Dr. Catfish. I've never heard of kai. It does bring to mind a certain phrase from Die Hard, which of course we won't say on here, although we could say
it's
the
a family
Mr. Falcon
show
version, right? But anyway, tell me what do you know about these kai? I've never heard of these.
Yeah, so you've probably heard of Kai's more famous cousins, like the Cisco. The Cisco's the big one. There's bloater. We could go into all the various taxonomy, which will spare everyone the pain of that. But the fact that there are a lot of different species in that Cisco family tree. One of the cool things about the Ciscos in the Great Lakes, these white fishes, is that they have kind of, you can think of them a bit like Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Islands. They radiated out into a bunch of different species that fill lots of different habitats, conditions, what we call niches in the environment. And so some of the deep water species are really hard to study, not just because they spawn during winter when it is not fun to be out there, but because they're just really deep down there. And a lot of the species within this family also look very similar. Like, even though they've evolved into different species that have things that we fisheries biologists can distinguish them from, if you just kind of saw one, you would probably be like, that looks like a silvery, shiny fish.
Sure, yeah.
Not super distinctive. And so there's a lot of genetic work being done throughout the Great Lakes, especially in cases of trying to reintroduce some of these rare and endemic or only found in certain lake species. But that is a whole other can of worms into getting into the genetics and what is a species really type thing. So
interesting. But so they're in kind of the broader salmonid family, it looks like, as I'm quickly learning about them on Wikipedia, and related to I see, but they're not trout exactly.
So they're in the salmonid family, and one distinguishing feature that they share with the other salmonids is they have this little nubby fin called an adipose fin that's on their back behind the main like dorsal fin. And that's a characteristic that salmonids share. And, it is something you could see and say like, oh, this isn't an alewife or some other silvery fish that you would find in the Great Lakes.
Does that help, Titus? Does the adipose fin, does that help with like their hydrodynamics? Does it help them swim faster? Is that kind of the deal with that?
I don't think we know. I think from what I've heard, it's kind of this, it's a holdover from a long time ago, and it doesn't really have a purpose anymore other than helping us fish biologists to identify, trout and salmon, whitefish family. And then of course some other fish have adipose fins as well. So yeah, it's
An ichthyophonic appendix, I guess is
Yeah, exactly.
excellent. So there must be a big cost because spurning does not take a lot of energy. Spawning does, though. It takes energy to get spurned, I suppose. But so with that, how do they get the energy? Because right, you got to make eggs, or I believe milt is the term. And that takes a lot of energy, but there's not a lot of food right now. So where does this energy come from? Do they build it up earlier? Like, do they fatten up in the fall and early winter, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so it's really about packing on resources to, fish. If you think about the life of a fish, or really anything, like producing offspring, like biologically is kind of the goal if you're a fish. So, most of the year when they're not spawning, and some species don't necessarily spawn every year. We talked about sturgeon, and sturgeon might not spawn every single year. They might take years off to kind of build up the resources to then invest that in their reproductive material. For females, generally, it takes a lot more energy to build up those eggs because that is really the kind of size of an egg, how much reserves it has, can really determine how the survival is going to be. So usually a better condition parents will produce kind of better survival in their offspring just because they have more resources. So if you're a really healthy female, and then larger females tend to produce more eggs. So you can have more and healthier eggs, and that can carry on to the next generation. So it's, really spending a lot of time feeding and building up those reserves.
Yeah. And I'll just piggyback off what Titus said. Everybody knows about Fat Bear Week, as bears are putting on the pounds to
Everybody knows. Yeah.
Everybody knows Fat Bear Week, but so that we know of examples of like animals that try and eat a lot before big events, a hibernation,
you guys
spawning.
And highlighting me for Fat Bear Week, I love it. Totally.
I feel like that was that
dead on. It's a Freudian slip of the highlight.
But all that
so for those listening, we had a back end, maybe a snafu, maybe not, where we have this very fancy streaming software that can make individual people's pictures, take up the whole screen or whatever. And like the moment that Katie O'Reilly said "Fat Bear," our producer, who will remain nameless, but she's Canadian, our producer blew up Titus like a fat bear all the way, so he took up the whole screen. Anyway, it was just a little error.
Freudian slip. But that's all to say that, animals take advantage when there are big pulses of resources, whether that's the fat bears and, the salmon streams, or algae blooms, at different times of the year in the Great Lakes. And most people think algae bloom like bad, but there are good blooms that, provide the phytoplankton, the zooplankton that fish need, or support prey fish that they feed upon. Also to say, just again, piggybacking off Titus, is that, these fish build up these reserves to spawn, and they may not make it. Like, spawning is the end goal, so they may not survive post spawning. We know, obviously, like fish like salmon are like notorious for like they spawn once, they die. But even for fish that can spawn more than once, depending on the conditions, their body condition, environmental conditions, it can take a lot out of them.
Not.
So it's spawning is not done lightly.
Boy, is it not. And so, but Titus, you're saying though, the reason that that's worth it, sort of evolutionarily speaking, is that there's just less competition right now. How long, like, so the little eggs, how long before they hatch? And like, but that's what I worry about. I guess it's winter. So when these little eggs hatch, is it just delicious food for everybody else? Is it a challenge for those larvae to survive into juvenile status?
Yeah, so we have a couple different species that, things like lake trout or whitefish spawn in the, late fall. Cisco spawn in November, December. We got kaya and bloater, burbot spawning now. So they're actually, just kind of getting a jump start on depositing their eggs. And these eggs are, part of their life cycle is they then kind of wait until conditions are right in the spring, and then they can hatch, and that gives them a jump start on the other species, which will have to kind of set up and pair off and gather. Even the earliest spring spawner that I can think of is something like the northern pike, which is going up into like flooded shallow areas. So if you're a whitefish or a trout, like you've left your eggs out there on these spawning reefs, and they are ready to go in the spring. So it's it is definitely a good adaptation to then have your larval offspring be kind of the first ones there, which it's an adaptation. But if we could talk about the condition of Main Basin Lake Michigan now, and it can also be a challenge.
Yeah, and there's a climate change story there too, I would assume. Climate change story everywhere, I suppose. Excellent. You were listening to Ask Dr. Fish, our monthly live stream, unless you're listening to it on our podcast, in which case it's our monthly podcast, in which we ask fish questions, science questions, life questions of not one, but two doctors' fish. And that is excellent. Now, we're just talking about fish spawning, about, of course, the burbot, which spawn while singing. The males sing during the spawning. And this kai, which is a fish that was just invented for this episode, but seems to be pretty cool. And bloaters, whatever bloaters are, the grossest sounding fish probably. But that, a reason that it makes sense is today's Groundhog Day, but coming up in just a couple of weeks is Valentine's Day. So here's a question. It's so now's the time where people send out aquatic themed Valentines. Noah has a bunch. We have a Deep Connection. Oh, and they have one of their little divers. You Light Up My Life. They have, and it's got like a little what are those things? Lighthouses. All sorts of cute stuff. So my question is this: which Great Lakes fish for you would be your Valentine if you had to pick one, and why? Kate is deep in thought. Titus, you think less. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the burbot just because, for multiple reasons. It's spawning now. It is weird looking. People have never heard of it. I think they're great. You can eat them. So you've got a Valentine's Day meal where you can enjoy this delicious burbot. And then you can also, you've got the rest of the body there, and you can talk about the single barbel and why it's really cool. So yeah, it's always a good choice in my mind for Valentine's Day.
So when Titus says burbot, I'd love to have you for dinner. The burbot need to be very thoughtful. Okay.
Be my Valentine's Day burbot. You're my Valentine's Day meal.
That is a good question, Stuart. I think the reason I was deep in thought, I'm like, okay, so what are the characteristics I want in a Valentine?
There we go. Break it down. What are the characteristics you want in a Valentine?
I think you need someone who is going to be, a good partner. And one of the fish I think that could fit that bill is the bowfin. So the bowfin is, been around a long time. It's a somewhat primitive looking fish, hasn't changed a lot. So there's kind of that stability. But then really the selling point there is that male bowfins spend a lot of time taking care of the kids. They actually will help, guard the eggs until they hatch. And then they sort of form what we call like a bowfin ball. So they will herd the little baby hatched, newly hatched babies into this sort of cloud of bowfin juveniles and keep them, in line, keep them, protected and safe until they're big enough to survive on their own. So that just seems like a really reliable, stable Valentine.
Wonderful.
And they've got a mouthful of, sharp teeth. So that seems like, they could take on other fish that you might be worried about.
Oh, so you want your Valentine to defend you from.
Exactly. Defend your honor.
I mean, the best Valentine is going to be pun based for the benefit of the cards. And
this is true.
So that is, we can look at some
Bowfin.
Professionals.
Love Vin, some bowfin. All right. I'll keep working on it. Meanwhile, up on your screen now are some Great Lakes Valentines for yourself.
I mean, and I'm also looking at a different one, but from the Gar Lab and Solomon David's folks over at University of Minnesota. And Gar is, of course, very ripe for puns. And here's one from last year, but it's "You are my sweet Gart," sweet like sweetheart. So it's kind of a low bar, I feel, or low gar.
Yeah. Okay. I got one. I'm basically in love with you. This is what I just came up with. Oh, here we go. And Carolyn's got some up on the screen. You're
shrimply the best.
Shrimply the best.
You occupy my heart.
Oh, but it should be octopuses. So
I know, yeah.
I'd swim upstream for you. I mean, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Of course, with Noah, you're going to get a lot of ocean stuff. Like, we're seeing whales and seals, but yeah, fish.
What about you're perch-fict?
That's a good one.
That's a good
That's
one.
all I got. I got, what was the other one? Basically
in love.
Yeah.
You're basically okay.
Yeah. Excellent. Love is in the air. Listeners, if you have your favorite fish Valentine's pun, send it in to the chat right now if you're live, or to askdrfish@gmail.com. And I assume I still have that email hooked up. And if not, I will get it hooked up just to
see your Valentine's Day.
Just to see your Valentine's Day puns.
Yeah, we can use those ideas for next year and have, if we're actually make our own. It would be nice to have our own Ask Dr. Fish fish-based Valentine's Day cards.
It would be nice. It would be nice. Yeah.
If we thought about things ahead of time,
Right.
like the professionals we are.
Yeah.
And this is very ahead of time. It's a year in the future.
Yeah.
So.
That's such a good point. Planning ahead, Titus. You plan ahead.
I'm always a year behind, but
I'm always a year behind, but also a year ahead somehow. All right. Anyway, we're good to go. Excellent. You are listening to Ask Dr. Fish, a monthly show in which we ask our doctors fish questions, science questions, and life questions. I'm Stuart Carlton with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and I'm joined with Katie O'Reilly, also with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and Dr. Catfish, and Dr. Titus Seilheimer of Wisconsin Sea Grant, Captain Manuman, we call him. Excellent. And so to wrap up, well, hold on. All right, live, you get to watch this happen live. We need to pick a game to finish on. We can finish on a classic game of Valentine's 20 questions. Or what is another great game that we've played in the past?
Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay, I have a suggestion.
Wonderful.
So another holiday that's coming up this month is Mardi Gras. And so I have learned over the past year that there is amazing seafood in New Orleans and Louisiana. And I was wondering if the two of you, Titus and Katie, could make up an ideal Mardi Gras feast. But then the twist on it is you can say, okay, this is what I would want, but you have to sub in fresh seafood from the Great Lakes.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right, Great Lakes seafood. And while we will give them a minute or two to think, we will have rapid fire questions if there are any from the audience. And if there aren't, then we will give them a minute to think, and I will come up with more fish puns or more good Valentines. I think a sea lamprey would not be a good Valentine. To tell you the truth, they're just a little bit too clingy.
I think, speaking of lamprey, I think the Great Lakes Fishery Commission usually has, they do some great graphics. I wonder if they usually have like a Valentine's Day themed sea lamprey stuff. So
yeah.
I'm stuck on you.
On you. Yeah. Okay.
I drink your blood.
I drink your blood. Classic Valentine's.
I mean,
I was in the sci-fi.
Vampires are a popular romance thing, so
Yeah. No. I remember that in high school. I didn't drink anybody's blood. I don't think anybody drank mine, but it gets. It was a sci-fi club, man. All kind of stuff happened in there. Excellent. All right. Well, Katie and Titus, are you ready? So for the Mardi Gras feast, obviously we're going to start with king cake for breakfast, which is extraordinarily overrated. But what the heck, it's there. And then we're gonna go out to the parade. We're gonna catch a lot of beads. We're gonna start early in the morning. If you want to wake up in time for Rex, that's fine. I haven't been to Mardi Gras this century, but I think it's changed a lot. They don't even really throw beads anymore. My brother's in a crew, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not. We don't even really throw beads. Nobody wants them." And so, anyway, now I think they just drink beer on the floats a lot. But the point is this: we've caught beads if they throw them. Cups, doubloons, coconuts. Oh yeah, you can wake up real early and go to Zulu. Much better than Rex. And then later they have the truck parades, which are the parade that I've been in. Anybody can get in the truck parades. There's like 100 18-wheelers with it's just anybody who wants to be in one basically can. And the kids love it because it's nonstop beads, or at least it was in the 90s. Who knows what it is now? But the point is we've done all that, and we're coming back for our Great Lakes Mardi Gras feast. Katie O'Reilly, give us a start. How are you opening this feast for us?
Ooh, so at this point, I'm assuming we've worked up quite an appetite. So I wasn't even thinking of the appetizer. I was going straight to an entree.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking a classic dish is crayfish etouffee. And, the one challenge is the crayfish or crawfish or crawdads, however you call them, depending on where you're from, that's typically used for eating is a species known as the Louisiana crawfish or the red swamp crayfish. And that is actually an invasive species in the Great Lakes region. So, there is the possibility if we harvest enough, it could take it out of the environment, but we obviously don't want to bring any into the basin to have our meal. There are some species of native crayfish in the Great Lakes region, but they're pretty small. So I think we need a lot of them if we're going to make our etouffee. But that was the first one that came to mind.
That's a good one to start, yeah. Those invasives are an issue. And some people will harvest them. They're in the Wabash River way down south, I think.
They're in the Chicago River, but I don't know if you'd want to eat ones that have been living in the Chicago River.
You mean the river that's so gross they reversed it to get it out of Chicago? Yeah, no, we're good. That's fine. All right. I love a good crawfish etouffee. It depends. There's actually a lot of different that's a different podcast. Titus, that's good. It's a nice rich meal. And so we've had that. We've had a lot of the fish offal drink that we learned about and teaching about the Great Lakes. And so now we're all energized. What are we following that up with?
All right, we just took so actually at my house we didn't have king cake. We had a king cake style Danish kringle.
I knew you were going to go kringle. Actually, as soon as you had said in my house, I was like, here comes a kringle.
Because we're in Wisconsin, and that's of course what we eat here. I think is that our officially our state pastry, perhaps. Yeah. So I'd say we'd actually we're going to eat some. We're not going to have etouffee. We're going to have kind of a buttery Chinese mystery snail and rusty crayfish dish. So we're keeping with the invasive species theme, and we've harvested them, of course. We've purged those snails, and now we're going to boil them up, and it's going to be delicious. So kind of a your traditional crawfish boil,
seafood boil. Yeah.
Yes, seafood boil with snails.
Clear out the sign. I don't know about these mystery snails. So they're still called Chinese. A lot of times these things that are associated with like a country or a region, we sort of got more specific to avoid confusion, I think. But so tell me about the Chinese mystery snail.
Yeah. So this is it's a very large snail, about the size of a golf ball.
Oh my.
They trace them back. They've been, kind of invasive to North America for over a century, probably came in the live food markets on the East Coast and the West Coast and have, shown up in Wisconsin. They're fairly widespread now. But you can, I've cooked them up before and eaten them. And, if you like snails, which not a lot of people say that, but if you're looking for something kind of fun to eat, you could just, boil those and then maybe saute them in a little butter, and that's pretty tasty. Throw some garlic in there.
Excellent.
I was going to say, with enough butter and garlic, anything can be tasty.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. And just for the record, for those tuning in live, I'm wearing my Eat Goby Dog shirt under special for this. And there's the Rusty Crayfish. Katie O'Reilly, you are one of the gurus at the Invasive Crayfish Collaborative. Tell us about rusty crayfish.
Yeah, so rusty crayfish are a little interesting because there are parts of the Great Lakes Basin or just adjacent in like Indiana and Ohio where the rusty crayfish is actually native. However, they've been introduced to large part of the upper basin, including Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. Actually, it's believed that it was through the bait trade because crayfish are really popular fish, bait for bass fishing, other, predatory fish. And they're really got these distinctive rusty patches on their back or their carapace, which if you're watching along with us on video, you can see in the picture here. So that's a really big distinguishing feature. It's interesting. They've gotten really widely established across the basin, but actually in some places, including in Wisconsin, they've almost had like a cyclical, like they got really, really numerous in some lakes. And then in more recent years, we've seen the populations go down. I know there's some researchers at like Trout Lake Biological Station that are looking into like what happened there. Cause that's always a challenge with managing invasive species is like, we want to reduce their numbers, but if it's just happening naturally, like we also want to understand what are the causes of that. So it's a really, rusty crayfish is an interesting one. And they're still, despite the fact that some numbers are going down in places, they're still a major threat throughout the basin.
Excellent.
Thinking of other meals, I know we've kind of been on the invert side of things for our Mardi Gras meal, but I was thinking, we have catfish in the Great Lakes. A nice blackened catfish could be a nice Mardi Gras meal too.
Perfect.
That takes us more to the fish side of things.
Yep.
How about a bunch of a whole mess of blackened or breaded and fried bullheads?
Bullheads.
Yeah. Kind of small. I was going to go with like a Creole whitefish because of course Lake whitefish is, our main commercial species coming from the Great Lakes, fresh, local, delicious. And you can season, it'll take season really well, very mild fish. And I think, serving that with some dirty rice would be just a tasty meal.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to think of a good whitefish Valentine's pun. I guess all I can come up with is you're smoking hot. Anyway.
Yeah, you got to have some smoked fish in there too.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely got to. All right. Well, anyway, if we make any of these dishes, you can be sure that we will try them and record it on video live the first Monday of every month at Ask Dr. Fish. That's right. Ask Dr. Fish is brought to you by, where are the credits? I'm looking for the credits. Ask Dr. Fish is brought to you by the fine people of Illinois, Indiana Sea Grant, Wisconsin Sea Grant, and Goby Dog Media. Eat those Goby Dogs. The show is produced and hosted by Stuart Carlton, Carolyn the Full Dog Foley, Dr. Fish, Katie O'Reilly, Dr. Fish, Titus Seilheimer. The live broadcast supported by Carolyn Foley and soon Megan the Lake Lover Gunn. I suspect. I have a feeling. The podcast version of the show is edited by, I don't know who's going to edit this. It's probably me, honestly, this time, and we'll figure it out later. Podcast artwork, very fun artwork by Ethan Kosak. Check out his work at ethankosak.com. That's Kosak, Kosak. If you have questions for Dr. Fish, send us an email, askdrfish@gmail.com. Use the social media hashtag AskDrFish. Would we get that still? I don't even know. You know what? Send an email. Or give us a call on our hotline at 765-496-4474. That's 76-54-96-44-74. Hike. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you live on Facebook and YouTube at 10 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 Eastern, on the first Monday of every month. In between now and then, if you have fish questions, science questions, or life questions, ask Dr. Fish. All right, we will end stream. Thank you for listening live. Those of you who are, we'll see you next month. AskDrFish@gmail.com. Bye. All right.